So we are live. Okay, let's kindly share our screen and our audio. Welcome, Barrister Gladys,
Thank you
Professor
very much.
Adeniji. Okay, welcome, Miss Peace Haruna. So, like I said, we're already live, so we're just going to get into it. Professor Adeyinka, if you can hear us, please kindly share your screen, your audio, your video. Sorry, I meant to say. So, okay, thank you so much, everyone, and thank you all for being here today. So, before we meet our incredible panelists and introduce everyone, let's be honest about where we are. I want to just set the scene for today's live session. So, Nigeria is a country of over 200 million people, one of the largest economies in Africa, one of the youngest populations in the world, and yet millions of Nigeria wake up every day facing profound injustice. So women and girls face violence with little to no legal recourse. Young people graduate with degrees but no jobs. Rural communities rural communities are ignored in policy decisions. People with disabilities are shut out of opportunities, and economic inequality keeps widening. So today we are gathered in commemoration of the World Day of Social Justice. The UN's theme for this year's World Social Justice Day is renewed commitment to social development and social justice. The word renewed matters. So it acknowledges that commitment has been made, promises have been signed, but for too many Nigerians, these promises haven't been translated into change in their everyday lives. So today we're here to ask, what will it take? Who is responsible, and what does justice actually look like when we center the voices that are being left behind? So I'm honored to be in conversation with amazing panelists who are going to help us unpack this. So I'm just going to be introducing them one after the other. So joining us, panelist one is Peace Ufedojo Haruna. Miss Peace is a creative writer and a storyteller for human rights and digital media. She's a professional passionate about literature, cultural preservation, and the sustainable development goals. You're welcome, Ms. Peace. Then our second panelist is Barrister Gladys Emmanuel. Our second panelist is Barrister Gladys Emmanuel, who is also on this live with us. Barrister Gladys Rebecca Emmanuel Esquire is an award-winning human rights lawyer, a gender justice advocate, and researcher with over a decade of experience in legal empowerment, community-led responses to gender-based violence, and capacity building for grassroots and public institutions. You are so welcome, Barrister Gladys. We're honored to have you in this live today. Then our third panelist is Professor Adeniji Adeyinka Samson. He is the head of Department Political Science at the University of Abuja. You're welcome, sir. We also have our fourth panelist who is, she'll be joining us later on. I think she's having network issues. She's Mrs. Modupe Adelanwa, Executive Director and Founder, SHIELDTHEM Support Organization. SHIELDTHEM Support Organization is a Nigeria-based nonprofit advancing the protection of women and children through gender-based violence prevention, survivor support, referral services, legal advocacy, and community-driven awareness initiatives. So we're so honored to have every one of our amazing panelists on this session. You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so we are going to just be going into today's session. So in one sentence, the question, one of our questions, in one sentence, what does social justice look like to you in Nigeria? So we are going to, the order of our answers will be going from the panelist one, that's Miss Peace, then the panelist two, who is Barrister Gladys, then panelist three, which is Professor Adeniji, then panelist four, the Mrs. Modupe. So in one sentence, what does social justice look like to you in Nigeria? Miss Peace, you have the floor.
All right. Thank you very much once again. I'm really honored to be here to talk about this topic that I'm really passionate about. In one sentence, social justice for me means, in the Nigerian context, means creating structures and systems, collectively creating structures and systems where access to opportunities and things needed to thrive are not privileges but are human rights, are basic rights. And if I were to give that more context, we can see it in our normal lives as Nigerians, where access to basic things like basic amenities, access to healthcare, access to proper education, access to even a decent work environment seems more like a privilege than a right. So social justice for me is equality, equal access to things like that.
My life. One. My apologies. We're so sorry for the interruption. We'll just be going on. Thank you so much, Miss Peace. We understood all that you said. So I'll just be going on to our second panelist, Barrister Gladys. So please, in one word, what does social justice, in one sentence, what does social justice look like to you in Nigeria?
Thank you very much for the invitation, and kudos to Do Take Action for this very laudable event. So for me, social justice looks like a system where rule of law is not a luxury. It is not one that is reserved for the elite, but it's a shield available to every citizen, especially for the most vulnerable. For someone who works in the GBV space, it looks more like where a survivor could walk into a police station, or where a survivor could get to a court and they're given swift and very professional and immediate attention. So for me, that is social justice, while at the same time maintaining the human dignity of the individual.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. We're going to be moving on to Professor Adeniji. In one sentence, what does social justice look like to you in Nigeria? In one sentence, please. Professor Adeniji, can you hear us?
Okay.
We can't
I,
hear you. Okay.
I, I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you now.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay. Thank you for having me. I'm grateful to take action for bringing me, to be a member of this panelist that will be discussing this critical issue, at this critical time in our nation where it is most needed. So social justice to me is fair treatment to everyone, equal treatment to everyone in the society, regardless of where you come from, regardless of your gender, regardless of your equality, your ethnicity, your religion, your social status, whether you are rich or poor, regardless of your economic condition. And when we talk about social justice, the focus of social justice is number one, it must be how resources are distributed, among everyone in society, and it is distributed fairly. That everyone has access to education, everyone has access to healthcare, everyone has access to employment. Human rights is not pushed to the background. No discrimination, oppression are eliminated. People can, live with dignity and equality. And if you look at that, there are a lot of questions that you should ask when you talk about social justice. One of those critical questions is, do people have access, equal access to education? In Nigeria, do people have equal access to education? What about jobs? Are job opportunity available to everyone? Do everyone have, fair treatment when that has to do with, a justice system? The vulnerable groups, are they protected, in this environment? So, and that was why, to sum it up, this man, John, defined it as a just society is a society where, economic and social inequality are put together to benefit the less advantaged in the society. So in Nigeria, social justice is a serious question, that we need to actually interrogate, and we need to realign, in order for us to be part of the map of the world in terms of social justice. Social justice in Nigeria is not fair enough. So a lot still need to be done. And that's why this discussion is essential at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. Thank you. Thank you.
My
So
pleasure.
we've heard from everyone. So we're going to be starting our conversation right now. So, like I said, the first question is, let's start with the hard truth. Nigeria has made strides in many areas, but millions are still being left behind. So let's name it. Who is being excluded and why is it happening? Who is being excluded in the many progress that Nigeria has made, and why is it happening? So we'll be going to our first panelist. The question to our first panelist will be, the SDGs talk about leaving no one behind. That's the Sustainable Development Goals. But in Nigeria's context, who is still invisible in development conversations and why?
All right. Okay. First of all, I'm going to say that it is one thing to think you know what people need or what a group of people need. And it is another thing to understand what those people need. And in order for you to understand what people need, you need to have a level of understanding from their viewpoint. You have to view the world from their eyes. And that is why inclusivity is very important. And throughout this work that I've done in the SDG space, I've realized that young people are not included. Young people, women, people in rural communities, and the disabled. When I talk about when I'm talking about young people being excluded, youth being excluded, over 60% of Nigerians are below the age of 30. And Nigerian youths are really active in the social impact space. Most of the SDG advocates that I know are youth. They are making collective action. They are working hard. They are taking charge of the present, taking charge of the future, yet they are being excluded. And it's baffling because throughout history, youth have been at the forefront of change. Youth have been at the forefront of social justice. We have examples like Herbert Makule, Obafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello. They all started from their youth. And for a country to progress, for us to become a progressive country, we need to bring the youth to the table. And it goes beyond token representation, because there's one thing known as token representation, and most times in Nigeria we bring people to the table and it's just to check boxes, but we need to go beyond that and hear their voice, and they need to be on those tables where decisions are made. Secondly, we'll talk about rural communities. It's like sometimes when I envision rooms where decisions are made, when development plannings are made, sometimes it feels like there's an incomplete map of Nigeria in those rooms. Because I'm going to use my dad's village as an example. Since the inception of Nigeria, Nigeria is 65 years old. Since the inception of Nigeria, since Nigeria was created, since our independence, we have not had lights in that village at all. Like light has not flashed in that village, and it made me realize that most infrastructural developments that we have in Nigeria are urban centered. So we do not have, and it's because they are lacking in representation. And truly, it means there is an incomplete map of Nigeria in the rooms where decisions are made. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about disabled people, and it's very important because whenever we are making decisions, when we sit down to make decisions, whether economic decisions, innovative decisions, technological advancements, do we actually put disabled people in mind? Whenever we build infrastructure, whenever we build bridges, whenever we construct offices, do we do that with the disabled people in mind? I went to camp last year. I served last year, and in camp there were no interpreters for people who could not speak and who could not hear. So the people who were interpreting were fellow corps members, and it made me think. I thought to myself that what if no core member could understand sign language? What if none of them could understand sign language? How would they have coped in camp? So the importance here is inclusivity. And lastly, women are being excluded from decision making processes. I recently learned of a concept. It's called the motherhood penalty. Naturally, we live in a very patriarchal society where most things are catered towards men, or a system where women are not really being prioritized. So you see that in terms of economic growth, career growth, you see that women are lagging behind, and it's not their fault. It's not that they are not skilled enough. No, it's because the systems in place do not enable them to thrive as they should. There was a married woman, she's a mom, she walked into an interview, and the people interviewing her said that, oh, you're intelligent, we like you, your background is very good, but we do not like hiring women who are married. And I've noticed that women in general, have more restraints on career growth, economic growth, and it's really sad. And we cannot have a progressive country. We cannot have a country where that is well developed, where people are represented, when these people are
Wow.
not properly
Wow.
seated at the tables where decisions are made.
Jesus.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. So circling back to what you said, one of the things that you mentioned is lack of distribution of development because of lack of representation, and you also stated fiscally challenged people, are they actually represented in local governments and in their countries, in Nigeria in general? So lack of distribution of development because of lack of representation. So thank you so much. So we're going to be moving on to I don't know if Barrister Gladys is still here. So
Yes, I am.
okay, so Barrister Gladys, you're the next person. So we have this question for you. As someone who has represented survivors in court, when women seek justice for violence, what barriers do they face in the legal system?
All right. Thank you very much. Now, it's a bit disappointing that we're still having this conversation 10 years after the enactment of the VAP. One would have thought that with the enactment of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act of 2015 or the respective GBV laws in the various states in the Federation, we would have been able to surmount this particular challenge. Nevertheless, survivors of gender-based violence or sexual and gender-based violence, especially women and girls, continue to face lots of challenges or barriers. The first on the list is procedural delays. It is almost like a long walk to freedom when women want to access justice. From the point of when they make that report at the police station to the point where there is the first hearing or it is being announced in court, and then there's a first hearing, evidence is being taken, to the point of even forensic examination, to the extent that our technology or institutions can carry. Then we also have the absence of robust witness protection and safe shelters. I'll give an instance. I work so much with women and girls, and part of the major headaches we have in the country right now is the absence of safe spaces and witness protection, especially survivors protection. Less than 2 years ago, there was a case involving a minor, and this particular case required us to put that minor in a safe space, pending, of course, the determination of that matter from the court or the relevant authorities. It will surprise you to note that as at the day when that case was reported, as at midnight that particular day, I was still with that survivor, not knowing where to put her. We had made all the calls, both from CSOs and requisite agencies, and most of them will tell you we do not have a shelter home or a safe space. The closest we could get was almost an hour drive from where I was. And that brings to mind, what then is the plight, or how do women and girls in this situation, how are they supposed to cope? Because we know, of course, that
Um, Barrister Gladys, we can't hear you anymore. I think her network is. Barrister Gladys, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. So I think you may need to log back in. Okay, so while we wait for Barrister Gladys, I am just seeing Madam Modupe Adelanwa here, the CEO and founder of SHIELDTHEM Support Organization. You're welcome, Ma. So we can't hear you, Ma. If you need to talk, you can just unmute yourself.
I'm to unmute myself. It's not coming on. Okay. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, all right. You're welcome, Ma. I think we have Barrister Gladys back. So.
Yes, please. Sincere apologies for that. So first we have procedural delays, like I mentioned. Then we have the absence of robust witness protection and safe spaces. We equally have language barrier and inaccessibility. I think Peace has done a tremendous job by demystifying that. Because sometimes we have situations where persons with disability can't access major institutions. They can't access the police outstation, the NSCDC outstation. They can't access the courtroom because there are no ramps. And even where there are ramps, you do not have a sign language interpreter. So how is that person supposed to communicate? And in a situation where the person with disability is double jeopardized, so that means first, they require an interpreter. Second, they can't even read or write. How are you supposed to communicate with them? Because for some that we've engaged with, they tell you, oh, when the survivor comes in, we give them a pen and a paper. So what if it's someone who cannot write? How are they able to communicate? So that's also another challenge. Then we have the cost. We would all agree that litigation doesn't come cheap. And then not every institution undertakes pro bono, which is free of charge. So how then are these persons supposed to pay for these services? We also know that Of course, for every adjournment, you're supposed to pay your legal representative. Although the law recognizes that persons who earn below the minimum wage of the country, they are lawyers are provided for them by the Legal Aid Council. But the Legal Aid Council in itself is overwhelmed with cases. So sometimes these persons are also kept on a roll for a while, and they are being re-traumatized. We also have the absence of lack of training of whether it's judicial staffs or criminal justice actors on a survivor-centered approach and even forensic interviewing. You get into a courtroom, for instance, and then the other counsel is asking the survivor, so what were you wearing on that particular day? You can tell that this survivor is visibly shaken or hasn't even healed from the trauma. And then you see the judge insisting, respond to that question, answer that question. But if we have a survivor-centered approach training or a forensic interview training, we wouldn't know that there are certain questions not to ask in an open courtroom. We also see situations where children are being involved, and the way the interview is being taken or being undertaken is done the same way as if it is an adult that is involved. We both know that the dynamics when it has to do with children differs greatly. Most of our institutions do not have a psychosocial support. They do not provide psychosocial support. They do not even have a psychologist who is trained. They do not recognize trauma-informed care. So with all of these lapses and all of these gaps, these are the barriers, or these are some of the barriers that survivors face in the legal system.
Okay, thank you so much, Barrister Gladys. So we can see that the gap between the laws on the VAP Act and on paper and justice in practice continue to widen. Then also we can also see that survivors face barriers along the way at every step of the way, which one of them is lack of shelter for survivors of GBV. Then you also mentioned we don't have survivor-centered teachings or survivor-centered approaches to legal hearing in court proceedings and all that. So thank you so much for that angle, Barrister Gladys. I think we're going to move on to the next question, which is to Professor Adeniji. So from a governance perspective, what are the structural reasons certain groups, we're talking of women, youths, rural populations, PWDs, remain marginalized in Nigeria? So from a governance perspective, sir, what are the structural reasons certain groups remain marginalized in Nigeria? So
right.
In 3 to 5 minutes, yes, sir, please.
All right. So now, looking at the reasons, for marginalization of certain groups in Nigeria, looking at it from the lens of governance. Now, if you look at governance itself, the United Nations and one back always they come to agreement in terms of what good governance constitutes, and which are characterized by participation. That is, citizens should have rights to an opportunity to take part in decision-making process of the state, and that to say that through they can have representative through legitimate ways. They can also freedom. They have freedom of expression and association and the likes of them. And if you look at in terms of participation, because of the over-centralization of governance, even though Nigeria seems to be operating 3 tiers of government, but you see how effective has been the closest tiers or arms of government to the people. And if you look at the federal government, seems to be more at the center of governance, and the state government and the local government that is very close to the people are relegated to the background. Secondly, they talk about the rule of law. The rule of law simply means that laws apply fairly and equally to everybody, whether you are less privileged, whether you are PWD, people with disabilities and all kind of class of people, regardless of your status and what have you. And everybody is expected to have equal unfair opportunity to, judicial system or rule to the law. And then independence of judiciary. How independent is judiciary? So the judiciary in Nigeria are not so much independent, so to speak. There are a lot of interference. And we talk about protection of human rights. Human rights are being jeopardized. If you look at what Barrister Gladys, just discussed now, you will see that a lot of some of these things are actually not there. And we talk about transparency. Transparency, and apart from that, nobody's above the law. That's one of the things that rule of law actually entails. But laws today, are not applied fairly in Nigeria. There's so many people that have the means usually take the day. And number 3 is transparency. How transparent is governance? The governance process is not, the decision of government, the information dissemination is not transparent. Citizens cannot access public record. If you go to a ministry to get records about, and there are a lot of laws, a lot of policies that are there. But because people don't have access to it, they don't even know what's rightly belong to them in Nigeria. Then also, we see that, trusts, are reduced because of the corruption. And people don't even believe in the leader, in government.
Okay, we can't hear you, sir. Professor Adeniji, we can't hear you. So if you can hear us, we can't hear you.
They don't believe of transparency, therefore. All right, so like I said, transparency. Government are not transparent in their policies. So citizens cannot access, public record. Trust, are not it's deficits, between the leaders, the governed, and the governors. Accountability. Public officials are not accountable. They are not answerable to the people, to their actions. If you look at so many issues, for example, in Osun State, there were issues, of fraudulence in the civil service payroll, and if you see the fraud, it's something that is becoming messy. Just yesterday I was listening to the program, and then they said about 13 points, something billion now is being spent on ghost worker, in Osun State. That's the public fund. Each month is about 1.1 billion, naira given to ghost worker, people that don't have, this and then. A lot of issues, of accountability that is there. Then there's also responsiveness. We say institutions of government are not prompt in responding to citizens. We don't see them responding effectively, and we saw in the healthcare, in education, and many institutions, the response are not, prompt. We also saw that public services are not, they don't deliver efficiently. They are not, what's rightly belong to, are not, effectively delivered. And number 6 is effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness and efficiency, that's good. That's what good governance entails. The resources are used, are supposed to be used wisely. But how wise?
Okay, sir, the line is breaking. I don't know if it's just me. The line is breaking. I can't hear you smoothly.
Nigeria resources used.
Okay, so
for what is meant for. Policies, of the policies that will put in place. So, there are a lot of wastage because of corruption, and also inclusiveness. And this simply means that all the groups
okay, sir, we can't hear you. I think we can't hear you anymore, and the network is really bad from your side. So Professor Adeniji has mentioned a lot of things So regarding the judiciary, he said the judiciary is not independent. So we asked him a question, which was, what are the biggest governance failures when it comes to social justice in Nigeria? Where is the system breaking down? So he mentioned judiciary is not independent. There's a lot of interference with the judiciary. Then he also mentioned that the laws are not applied fairly. Then how he asked a question, how transparent is governance? How transparent truly is government? Then he mentioned accountability. Who is holding our leaders accountable? Then he cited the example with the Osun government. So thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. Thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. We are going to be moving on with the next block for this session. The next question, which will be directed to Madam Modupe. When government systems fail, civil society often steps in. But should NG... So the question to Madam Modupe is, you work directly with women and gender-based violence survivors every day. So what does exclusion look like on the ground? And who are the women being left behind? We've heard from the lawyers, Barrister Gladys' perspective as a lawyer who has represented survivors in court. We've also heard from Professor Adeniji from governance perspective. We also heard from our SDG advocate, Sustainable Development Goals advocate. Then we're about to hear from you, Ma. So you work directly with women and GBV survivors every day. What does exclusion look like on the ground? Who are the women being left behind?
Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for the commotion earlier on. I said I'm Modupe Adelanwa. Okay, let me go straight to the issue of exclusion. Thank you for this very important question. When we talk about exclusion, it is not abstract. It has names. It has faces, real people. It has bruises. It also has silence in the background. Exclusion on the ground looks like a woman in a rural community who has experienced violence but has never seen a police officer trained under the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. She has never, she doesn't know, she's ignorant. She doesn't know her rights. A woman that does not know her rights. The nearest support center is hours away from her. That's even if she knew about it. Then we talk about transport. Transport alone is more than what she earns in a week. So you can imagine what it means to them when we talk about exclusion. We've been there, we've seen them. It looks like a survivor who wants justice but cannot afford a lawyer. They don't even know that is available. They don't know that something like FIDA is available. Finding a case requires money. You all know that. For either documentation, medical reports, transport, and sometimes unofficial fee. You know, we always have something to add. Justice then becomes something only the wealthy can pursue in Nigeria. It looks like a woman, especially to me, looks like a woman who stays in an abusive marriage because she has no income of her own. Economic dependence is one of the strongest chains of violence in Nigeria. When living even means homelessness, the thought of, I'm going to be homeless, hungry, hunger, no food, or losing custody of your children. And then survival becomes more urgent than safety. Listen to me. Exclusion looks like a 14-year-old girl. I'm talking about what we have seen and heard. A 14-year-old girl put out of school because her family cannot afford fees. And within months, she's married off, just like that. Because her family needs money. She did not beg her family to bring her to the world, mind you. Then poverty becomes a pipeline to early marriage. And early marriage becomes pipeline to lifelong vulnerability. Let me share two brief stories. in person. One survivor we supported, I will call her, let me just call her Amina, worked nearly 2 hours to report sexual violence. She had been assaulted by someone known to her in her community. When she arrived at the police station, she was asked to settle quietly. Can you imagine? Even the police that we trust, we are meant to trust. She was told going to court would destroy her future. It was not the law that failed her first. It was the system around the law. And another woman, let me quickly come. Chioma. She endured years of domestic violence, abuse. She kept quiet. She told us, if I leave, where do I go? I have 3 children. I don't even have transport money from here. What trapped her was not just violence, it was poverty. So who is being left behind? The rural women, the poor women, women without formal education, girls whose dreams are negotiable because of economic hardship. Exclusion is not accidental, it is systemic in Nigeria. And until we address access to justice, economic empowerment, and grassroots awareness, especially in rural communities, we will continue to rescue survivors one by one instead of transforming the system that keeps producing them. Thank you very much. That is the reality. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Modupe. Thank you for all that you've said. Like she said, exclusion isn't accidental, it's systemic. So exclusion isn't accidental. All the things that we have mentioned so far, all what the panelists have been re-emphasizing is leading to one core thing, which is exclusion is not accidental, it's systemic. So thank you so much, Mrs. Modupe, for that session. So we're going to dig deeper into the system in this our next block. We're going to dig deeper into the system. So we've named who is being left behind. We're talking about the persons with disability, the women who have been abused but they were told to settle. We're also we've also mentioned the lack of shelter and everything. So we're going to be looking at accountability. What is broken in Nigerian social development system? Remember why we are here. 1 billion reasons for justice. This is Social Justice Day. And our title for this live is 1 billion reasons for justice. So we're going to be looking at what is broken in Nigerian social development system and who should be held responsible. Because this life is not just about making new commitments, it's about, oh, we've made commitments in the past. What is the way forward? Who are those? Who should we hold responsible for the commitments that have been made in the past? Yes, they promise good governance, they promise transparency, they promise survivor support for survivors. But where are we? What is broken? Who should be held responsible? So we're going to be moving on to Professor Adeniji. The first question is going to you. What are the biggest governance failures when it comes to social justice in Nigeria? Please, let's be mindful of time and keep our answers between 3 to 5 minutes. What are the biggest governance failures when it comes to social justice in Nigeria? Where is the system breaking down in Nigeria?
All right. So thank you. Very quickly, sorry, the other time the thing broke, there was breaking transmission because of the network issue. The glitch from network has been, funny. All right. So quickly, if you look at the biggest governance failure, as touching social justice in Nigeria, like I mentioned, before the network went up the other time, there is a challenge with the rule of law. Our rule of law is not very good. It's only on selected occasion that you see it's to the reach of everyone. And it's a very serious issue that we need to tackle. One of the key failure of governance in Nigeria is lack of, the rule of law is not efficient enough. Then secondly, participation is a big challenge. Participation is selective, and that boils down to the recruitment system, to our political leadership in Nigeria is faulty. And to the extent that the political authority has been hijacked by few, elites that are classified as, political jobbers, which they cannot, sustain any business, on their own. The only business they know is politics. And so by so doing, such people, such calibers of people, you may not expect much from them, because they see political office as a business shop where they must eat, and all the likes of them. And apart from that, we see transparency is far behind. That's a far cry in terms of transparency. Government are not transparent enough. There were a lot of debates going on now that, okay, a lot of money has been borrowed in Nigeria from the public, domestic borrowing and external borrowing, and so many of those borrowing have been tagged to a particular project, and those projects are not there. No road, power supply is zero. No infrastructure, are decades, and maintenance are very poor. Now the question is that where are those money? So transparency is a big challenge. Governments are not open to public, to check their records, and be able to, give account of what they do. No accountability. Government are not responsive. We don't see efficiency. We don't see effectiveness in governance. Equity is not there. People are still left behind. A lot of people are left behind. We have a lot of high, out of school children, even at this time for education. No concessions, and no, we don't see leaders with vision. So with corruption is at the center of some of these challenges we are facing. The rate of corruption is so high that that has led many people into poverty. There's no social protection. People are not protected. There's a gap between policy implementation between the federal government and state government. Citizens, are not. They are lacking, in trusting the government. They couldn't trust the government any longer. And so when you look at these challenges, it's a big issue. And many countries have gone this route. They have gone through this route, and we have seen them coming out, better. And we need to do something specific. We need to do something deliberate, intentional, so that we'll be able to come out, and join up with Committee of Nations across the world. Many nations have gone through this route, and they're out of it, and they're better. They're doing better today. For example, if you look at India between 2005 and 2001, they were able to pull out 415 million people out of poverty because of consistency, because of governance, because of intentional governance. They're able to pull out that way. China was able to pull out 800 million people out of poverty. And so you can see the rate of employment is growing exponentially in this climate. And so Nigeria can also do the same thing if you can address the issue of governance, because governance failure will not help us anywhere. Otherwise, all the rate of crisis we have seen in Nigeria, the violence we have seen in Nigeria, is not far from corruption. The challenges we have seen in Nigeria in terms of all the arid of insecurity we have, from banditry to robbery to insurgency to terrorism and all the likes of them, they are not far from poor governance. They are not far from failure in governance. So for us to address this issue, and the insecurity is increasing the gap between those who the recipient of social justice and those who are left behind. And so this must be addressed. Failure in governance is a critical issue that must be. If we don't address it, everything that we do will amount to nothing, because governance is central to whatever we do. Social justice is a function of the mindset and the policy that is put in place and we are ready to implement.
All right.
Otherwise, we may not have, the social justice we are looking for. Equality will not be there, because when you don't have right people in the right place, when you don't have right a
Okay,
round
thank you
peg in a
so
right,
much.
or in round holes, another about square, peg is square.
All right.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. Thank you. We have to go over
honestly
to the next thing. We have to keep it moving.
speaking, the social justice
Yes.
were leaders. So
Thank you.
we
Thank you so much, Professor
need
Adeniji.
to,
Thank you.
as a country, we need to, as a people, come together at this point to see that we rally around and choose the
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. I think his network has left. His network is having network issues, so I think we're just going to move on to the next block. Like he mentioned very key things. The rule of law is not very efficient in Nigeria. So participation in governance is also a big challenge. So he also mentioned corruption, poor governance. So these are what is broken in Nigerian social development system. And he's saying that the people to hold accountable primarily is the government. Our government system is not very efficient. There's corruption, there's no transparency. The government do not want us to scrutinize them. They are not transparent enough. And he also mentioned insecurity as the main factor that is increasing the gap between those who are left behind and and development in Nigeria. So he mentioned insecurity. So that was a very amazing one. Thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. We're going to be moving on to Barrister Gladys. From a legal standpoint, what laws or policies exist to protect marginalized groups? So we've been able to identify some of the marginalized groups. Then we've also touched on where the system is breaking down. So from a legal standpoint, what laws or policies exist to protect marginalized groups? And where are the enforcement gaps? Barrister Gladys, thank you. Okay, I think Barrister Gladys is also having network challenges. So while we wait for her to come on, we'll be moving on to Madam Modupe. So when government systems fail, civic society often steps in. But should NGOs be filling gaps that the state is responsible for? How do we balance that?
Okay, thank you for that very important question. See, when government systems fail, civil society often becomes the first responder. And in many communities in Nigeria, across Nigeria, NGOs are the reason survivors of violence are alive today, sheltered and receiving support as of today. But here is the honest truth. NGOs were never designed to replace the state. You should note that. Organizations like SHIELDTHEM support organization, we provide immediate life-saving interventions for the emergency shelter, yes, through referral, legal referrals through feeder at times, then social support. So we have places like Worklife, then community sensitization. We move quickly, we innovate, we fill urgent gaps, but we do not control national budgets. We do not command the police. We do not pass or enforce laws. The state has the constitutional mandate, the infrastructure, and the long-term financing to build sustainable systems. NGOs operate on grants. That is even if we have that, often short-term, often uncertain at times. So when we begin to substitute for government responsibility, we create a dangerous pattern. you want to start creating dangerous patterns, normalizing state absence. There is also a real risk that governments begin to say, sometimes silently, civil society is handling it. And that is not accountability. So what is the balance? I would say civil society should not be a replacement. We should be partners, watchdogs, innovators, and advocates. Let me give a practical example. At SHIELDTHEM, we have supported survivors navigating protection under the VAP Act through referrals. We engage local authorities to strengthen referral pathways. We draw in law enforcement attention at our outreaches. We advocated for clearer implementation procedures. We are not waiting for the government, but at the same time, government should not depend solely on us. We need the government. In one instance, after repeated engagement of survival challenges response from communities increased, we see increase in it. And that is the difference. We did not replace the system. We help strengthen it. The long-term goal must always be institutional reform. And institutional reform will come from the government, not perpetual NGO intervention. We keep doing this. Civil society should light the path, amplify community voices, and hold the system accountable. But the system must ultimately work. It has to work first, because justice, safety, and protection are not charity. They are rights. And that must be stressed. And rights are the responsibility of the state. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much, Mrs. Modupe, for that. You said the civil society should not replace the government, but should be partners, watchdogs, innovators, and advocates, so that we will be able to balance the equation. Okay, thank you so much. Barrister Gladys, we asked the question earlier, but I think your network went off, so I'm just going to repeat the question.
Okay.
So,
okay.
From a legal standpoint, what laws or policies exist to protect marginalized groups, and where are the enforcement gaps?
All right, thank you so much. I think we can't talk about laws in Nigeria without mentioning the Constitution of Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. The ground norm of all the laws we have currently in the and for fundamental rights, you see things like right.
Okay, so we can't hear you, Barrister Gladys. If you can hear us, the network is
in law has stated for femicide. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. All right. So in as much as the Constitution has mentioned right to life, we still have cases of femicide. In fact, it was reported in 2025 that the cases had increased to 133. But as at the end of 2025, we now had the cases increased to about 48%. So then where is the right to life indeed? Seeing that the Constitution really guarantees this particular right, but then we have women and girls being killed every day. Under the Gun Act of 2015. We have the VAP of 2015, which is stated to be one of the most progressive pieces of legislation that we have in the country. The VAP provides for offenses such as rape, offenses such as spousal battery, offenses such as the harmful use of substances, harmful widowhood practices, and the likes. But then we still have some of these gaps. We also have the Child Rights Act, which looks specifically at children. But then, with all of this acts, because Nigeria is a state that requires domestication in each of the states, we now have an uneven implementation of these laws in the various states. And this is a major challenge. So that is why you have in some states, there is the elimination or gradual phasing out of child marriage, but you have in other states, there is the endorsement of issues of child marriage. Then we also see things such as weak enforcement, which I've mentioned. The VAP actually provides for what is known as the Sexual Offenders Register, and it also requires that we have specific gender GBV units or GBV decks, whether it's at ministries or departments or agencies. But to be fair, how many of these ministries or departments or agencies have the gender decks? And even when they have, how trained are their personnel? You still have some persons or personnel using the emotional ways of inquiring or obtaining responses from survivors themselves, rather than going through the trauma-informed approach or leveraging the survivor-centered approach. Then we also have protection orders. By virtue of the VAP Act, it also provides for what is known as protection orders. That there was an incident of violence, the survivor is supposed to get some level of protection, and these orders are gotten from the High Court. Now, we see that even some of the personnel, some of the police officers, NSCDC, they do not even know there's anything known as protection orders. And again, when the court is being approached, some
network is something else.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay, so sorry, my mic was muted. So I was saying that while we wait for Barrister Gladys to come back, okay, I think she's back.
It's with the budget you'll be able to secure ready vehicles to rescue survivors. It's with the budget you'll be able to train your personnel. It's with the budget you'll be able to. So in the absence of proper budgetary allocation, there is also this problem. And then we have political will. So also with the absence of proper political will, we continue to see SGBV cases not being treated as a national emergency that it requires. Countries such as Australia have done the needful by flagging off a state of emergency on sexual and gender-based violence. But in Nigeria, we're still going round in circles and trying bits and bits here and there and hoping that our strategies would work without actively engaging with survivors or engaging with
Hello, what's happening? I can't hear
Okay,
anything.
my mic was muted. So, like I said, while we wait for Barrister Gladys, she mentioned political will. So the government, Nigerian government, is not seeing gender-based violence as national emergency, unlike countries that have passed gender-based violence as state of emergency. So she also mentioned, so that's the political will. She also mentioned weak enforcement of laws, even though laws exist in Nigeria, there's weak enforcement. There's an uneven implementation of laws in different states in Nigeria. So these are the things that are a barrier to social justice in Nigeria at the moment, from the legal perspective. Thank you so much, Barrister Gladys. I think we'll be moving on to, while we wait for her to come back online. Let's speak to Miss Peace. So you worked across development spaces, who bears the ultimate responsibility for making sure no Nigerian is left behind? I'm talking of government. Is it government, or is it the civil society? Is it the private sector, or is it all of the above? You've worked across, so who bears the ultimate responsibility for making sure that no Nigeria is left behind? Remember, the theme of today's live session is a billion reasons for justice, leaving no one behind in Nigeria. So I'm going to throw this question to you. Who bears the ultimate responsibility for making sure that no Nigerian is being left behind?
All right, thank you very much. As someone who has worked in the sustainable development space, I like to refer to the SDGs as the blueprint for attaining social justice. So it's built on 5 pillars, which are people, planet, prosperity, partnership, and peace. And the SDGs are real issues that affect real communities, that affect people, that affect nations, and it requires real action. This means that we need to come together. We need collective action, and which in turn means it requires it requires shared responsibility. So, but shared responsibility does not mean equal responsibility. So even though it's the responsibility of everybody, every single person, every sector, shared responsibility does not mean equal responsibility. The government has the primary responsibility to ensure that no one is left behind. First of all, it is elected by the people. It is elected by the people, and it is funded by public resources, which includes taxes that comes from citizens. The administration of a country rests on the shoulders of the government. Therefore, it must serve the people which it is established for. Civil society like NGOs, charity organizations, they can serve as a bridge. They can amplify voices. They can amplify the voices of citizens, and they can, fill in the gaps, because there are things that the government would not notice, but civil society, NGOs, private sectors would notice. However, they cannot replace the government. At the same time, I know we are talking about the private sector. We are talking about the private sector, civil societies, NGOs, but we also need to put bring citizens into the conversation, because the citizens are not powerless. The citizens as well have a very great responsibility, which is holding the government accountable, because accountability is part of civic responsibility. So that's why, as citizens of Nigeria, we cannot even afford to be apathetic. We should foster collective action among ourselves. We should come together and vote. I know that, yes, we live in a country, we have an environment where so many people are very apathetic. They are tired. They feel like, oh, their voices don't matter and their votes don't count. But that is the work that we have to do as citizens, to ensure that the government stays true to the reason why they were created. Sorry, can you hear me? All right. All right. So we need to create, even as citizens, we need to create an environment that enables social justice. Most times, the mistake that we make is that we transfer the responsibility, we transfer the work that is meant for the government, that is meant for people in the governmental institutions. We transfer those things to the NGO. We transfer those responsibilities to the NGO.
Maybe you put a good one.
Okay, go off again. Let me charge this.
Sit down here now. They should reduce their volume.
Just stay here.
Hello, Sydney.
All right. All right. Thank you so much, Miss Peace, for that. I couldn't really hear you, but it's fine. I think you were audible to every other person. So thank you so
All
much.
right.
Yes, we'll be moving on to the next block. So from this block, what we've gotten is that responsibility is shared, like you mentioned. But before the network went off, I took note of one thing that you said, which was that responsibility should be shared, but it should not be the sole responsibility of one body. For instance, the sole responsibility of the civil society or the government to make sure that no Nigerian is left behind, but the responsibility should be shared. And also, accountability is missing. So we're about to shift the focus now to solutions, because critic without action changes nothing. So I think the first question will be going to you also, Miss Peace. So we've been talking about the problems. Now let's be equally real about the solutions. What is already working in Nigeria and how do we scale it? So tell us about one example of a community-led or youth-led initiative in Nigeria that is making real progress on social justice. What is the model? So please let's keep our response to 3 to 4 minutes max because of our time. Thank you.
Okay, all right, all right. So there's one initiative that I'm very proud of, and I feel like their model is extremely brilliant, and that is the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Nigeria, and the network coordinator is Emmanuel Olowoyo. So under the SDSN Nigeria, they have the SDGs Advocate program, and what they do is that they have different chapters across the 36 states of Nigeria, including the FCT, and they have chapters. They have a structure in place where they train youths, they train young people between the ages of 18 to 35 to take action in their communities. So they give them resources, training, everything you need. I am a beneficiary of that program. They give you the resources, they give you training, they hold classes, and they give you enough room to plan your own projects, to take steps in your community. Currently, they are open for their eighth cohort. So they bring in, and it's very brilliant because one organization cannot decide to solve all the problems in Nigeria. So their model is that they are making use of, they are bringing together youths and taking advantage of the passion that they have in them to make change in their community. So you see youths, based on the states that you are in, these youths come together, they do community projects, both virtual community projects, physical community projects, and each advocate in the cohort, they have projects that they run. So like on a school project, you go to a school, you educate the students of that school on the sustainable development goals, and you can identify a problem in your solution, a problem in your community, and offer solution actually. And it's very, very brilliant, because you see that the effects and the solutions that they plan to effect in Nigeria it's more effective. It's more effective when they bring together youth. And that's why I'm very passionate about ensuring youth participation, because as we can see, it's bringing out the passion of so many youths have identified this in their society. But before joining the advocates program, they did not know that, okay, this is part of the SDGs, or this is what we can do about it. But now they have come together to form that structure. And one thing I love about it is that when you are done with the training program, it doesn't end there. You see, they have the SDG Advocate Network. So you get access to boot camps, you get support whenever you want to carry out your personal project. And they do trips actually. Like the last time they went to the UN house. So it's really brilliant. They are doing good work.
You so much, Ms. Peace. So we're talking about grassroots actions and small scale solutions, like you mentioned, grassroots actions. So that was very incredible. Then if you're on this live and you want to take action in any of the sustainable development goals you are passionate about, I will encourage you to stay to the end of this live. We'll be ending very soon. I'm going to let you know give you steps on how you can register and also start taking action in your community. So thank you so much, Ms. Space. We'll be moving on to the next question, which will be to Madam Modupe. So your organization is on the front lines. What intervention or approach has genuinely move the needle for the women you work with. Remember, we're not talking about solutions, not the problems. What is working in, we're discussing what is working in Nigeria and how do we scale it. From what Peace said, she's grassroots actions are working. Young people are getting to register to be grassroots activists in their community. So this is working. So we're going to look at how do we scale that. Then Mrs. Modupe, well, we want to hear from you. You support your organization, which is Shield Them Support Organization, is on the front line. What intervention or approach has genuinely moved the needle for the women that you work with?
Question. For Shield Them Support Organization, community-based campaigns worked and is still working in addressing gender-based violence, because they tackle the problem at the root within the social norms, power structures, and silence that allows abuse to thrive anyhow. They build trust before intervention, which is very, very key to our success. Gender-based violence is deeply sensitive. It's not something that a lot of people want to discuss or it's held as if it's a stigma and the rest of it. And survivors, they are more likely to speak up. When you go on campaigns, you meet with them at times, they are likely to speak up when when awareness comes from familiar faces, especially when you are in a particular community, and then you are always there, you familiarize yourself with the leaders and the community leaders and the rest of it. They feel so comfortable with you. You feel comfortable, they feel comfortable with you because you are talking to the community leaders. You are talking to the faith leaders. You are talking to the women's group. You are as if you are living with them, rather than talking to outsiders who do not know anything about their community. So it gives them joy to have a sort of community ownership. And this reduces the fear and stigma. It was there to be able to come forth. They started like you see them shifting from harmful norms, not just behaviors. They shift away from harmful norms because you have come, you have brought your campaign, you should talk to them about what is really right for them. Instead of focusing only on responding to violence, the campaigns challenge beliefs that normalize abuse. All those their beliefs that, it's like a foundation laid for abuse. It collapses under campaigning. Through dialogues, school engagement, conversations with the leaders from family, it's now started shifting. The belief now started shifting from, it's a family matter. Let's take it at that. It's now shifted, it has shifted to human rights issues, which make it better and easier for us to work. This kind of model increased reporting and helps to seek. It helps us to be seeking, and they too are seeking to know more about what is actually happening, what their rights are. Once communities understood, which they are now understanding, the legal protections that are available to them, more survivors are coming out from the schools, from the whole community, in the marketplace, anywhere we go. Some people will just come and say, I have my story. Before, they wouldn't do that. But for the campaign, open campaigns in the schools and wherever we go, in the marketplaces. So the awareness of rights and referral pathways also made them feel accessible and safe. When we talk to them that these are your rights. You have rights as humans. You have right to safety.
Okay, so
and to be free. Okay, and there's always referral pathways too. So they feel comfortable talking to us. They engage, and we also engage men and boys as allies. So this kind of prevention became a shared responsibility by involving men, traditional rulers,
All right, thank you so much, Madam Modupe. Thank you, thank you. We've heard all that you have to say. Like you mentioned, the model you mentioned was community actions. So you said community actions is one of the things that you've seen move the needle in your work with women. Community actions, by when we go to communities and we take act, we sensitize them, they tend to open up to us. Then you also mentioned campaigns as a way of collapsing the myths and beliefs, long-standing beliefs that some of these women has had. So you said campaigns, campaigns move the needle, and community action. So thank you so much. I think we'll be moving on to, because of time, let's go on to our next panelist, which is Barrister Gladys. Are there any legal reforms or court rulings in recent years that give you hope or point to a path forward? Please, 3 to 5 minutes max. Thank you.
Definitely. I think the first one is states like Lagos states now have specialized GBV courts. So with this court, personnel are trained, judges are also trained on how to address GBV cases. Then the second will be training of judicial officers. So we have INGOs such as European Union, ROLAC, under the ROLAC project, UN Women that are now providing funding, working with national organizations to be able to train and build the capacity of judicial officers, judges, magistrates, high court judges on issues of gender-based violence and how to address them promptly. Then we also have things around setting up response teams. So things like the sexual and gender-based violence response team. We have one in Abuja, which my organization Tabitha Empowerment Center is a part of. We have in Kaduna and some other states. So with this response team, it has led to a coordinated referral pathway, because we now have organizations on that team that some provide medical services, some provide legal aid, others provide psychosocial support, safe spaces, and the likes. Then we have TFGBV reforms. TFGBV is technologically facilitated gender-based violence. Gone were the time when we were not really aware of what it meant, but right now Nigeria has come to cognizance of what TFGBV means. Digital violence is, and one thing we've done is we've updated our Cyber Crimes Act, thereby demonstrating that Nigeria is non-consensual sharing of images and online harassment. Then finally, we'll have the National Gender-Based Violence Dashboard. That dashboard started operations I think right after the COVID pandemic. It was then supported by European Union, and it provided a platform for us to be able to access real-time data on GBV cases. So you know which are the hotspots, which cases are most prevalent in what part of the country, and then what services have been provided. So that way the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs, or the equivalent of the Federal Ministry of Women Affairs in particular states, were able to see what forms of violence are prevalent, and then they're able to design their programs around this, and also provide real-time assistance or support to survivors. So these are some of the innovations that have been able to come up in recent times that I'm very confident about. And of course, if we continue at this pace, we would get there in addressing cases of sexual and gender-based violence. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Barrister Gladys. You mentioned setting up response team. That's very amazing. Then also you mentioned the National Based Violence Dashboard. Also mentioned TFGB reforms. Okay, so this is the way forward. So these are some of the things that that give us hope, and they are pointing to a path forward for us in Nigeria. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the amazing work that Tabitha Empowerment Center is doing in mitigating gender-based violence and addressing gender-based violence in communities in Nigeria. Thank you so much. Then we're going to moving on to Professor Adeniji. We have a question for you, sir. So if you were advising Nigeria's leadership tomorrow, what is one bold policy change you'd recommend to accelerate social justice?
Right. Thank you once again. One of the critical, policy that need to come to place is, Nigeria has a lot of, policies on social protection, but they are fragmented. So therefore, I would suggest that government comes up with, social protection and poverty reduction policy, that will harmonize, all the social intervention programs. There will not be fragmented, social, programs, to intervene in terms of, poverty reduction. So number one thing that must be done critically in terms of, policy on social protection and, poverty reduction is there must be harmonized social intervention program. Two, the database, that targets the beneficiary must be strengthened. The database must not be haphazard. It must be together and real, not just for political goal of a political gain or political to gain political acceptance from the people. Three, in terms of social policy, social protection policy and poverty reduction, there must be employment, insurance for every citizens. Every citizens must have that coverage. It must have that assurance of employment. And then also in that policy, the monitoring and evaluation mechanism, must be robust. It must be clear, and intentional. And by so doing, we're going to have, persistent, reduction in the kind of multidimensional poverty that we have in Nigeria. Mind you, the inequality rate in Nigeria is high. Poverty rate in Nigeria is about 130 million people that are living under multidimensional policy. So this social protection policy and poverty reduction policy is an emergency that government must do something about. It's not, it should not be handled, with all kind of, levity. And then again, the budgets will be. I would suggest that government should come up with, a policy that will bring about transparency, in budget process, so that the citizen will be able to see and how reflective the budget is on, the key social protection, policy that government is coming up with. And also the over centralized authorization of power should come down. There must be policy in place that will reduce the over centralization of of power at the center. So government, there should be devolution of power. That power devolution must come down to the lowest level of government. And the move for autonomy, local government autonomy, must be put through. They must see it through. Government must ensure that they do all it takes to enable local government, have that autonomy, so they be able to attend to people that are the immediate, environment where, they are. Then also there must be intentional and mandatory inclusiveness, or inclusion of, marginalized group, the gender, the women, the people with disability, the out of school children, and those vulnerable groups. There must be intentional inclusion of this marginalized group. There must be policy, that will bring them, so that we're going to have a more stable, and well coordinated, social, protection policy, that will bring about, all kind of people that have been left behind, those who have been, ostracized, so to speak, to be able to bring them to the next, so that everyone will have sense of belonging. Everyone will have sense, of being part of, the bigger, picture in the country. So, and these are some of the things that must be put in place. And by so doing, we're going to have, the reduction, drastic reduction in poverty rates, and those who have left behind, the inequality and poverty rate will actually, go down, in the country as a case may be. So, and we have seen that many policies have been put in place, and those policies were somersaulted. That's why we have a lot of policies somersaulted because of, lack of proper coordination, and fragmented, policy like that. So we need to come up with something, that will bring about, the whole thing, the whole policy together, the whole program of government together, so that to achieve the desired, goal, as touching the targeted, group, in Nigeria. And so, if you look at so many of the programs that were, actually implemented, some of them are just on paper. They were just cosmetic, and cosmetic policy will not help us at this time. Every policy we are going to come up with must be intentional. There must be a policy that we are ready to implement. So, and when we implement it, we must do close monitoring, so that we're going to see how functional, how workable are those policies. So, if they are not working well, we're able to come up with, a better way, of doing it. And then, lastly, there must be consistency in this policy. Change of government should not in any way affect the policy that are put in place. Successive government must be able to follow what their predecessors are doing. Once they are good, if they are not good enough, they can work on it and modify it and bring it to a point of which it will be implementable. So by so doing, we are going to have continuity, and that reduction will continue regardless of the government or political parties, that are in place per time. So otherwise, we will just do a step forward and 10 step backward. And what we need now is consistency. What we need now in bridging the gap, that has been created in policy, gap that has been created especially in terms of social justice system in Nigeria. So what we need to do now is to ensure that we are consistent, is to ensure that we avoid as much as possible policy somersaults. We should not bring new policy where the old one has not been proven to be wrong totally. So we can update it. We can, work on it to ensure that those policies are fine-tuned to meet today's need. And by so doing, we're going to have, in no distant time from now, we're going to have, structure policy, social policy, that will help to bring down the kind of inequality and poverty level we have in Nigeria, and it will bring us to the map of the world map, of countries that actually are doing well.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. Thank you for all that you've mentioned. I particularly resonate with what you said about consistency. Change of government should not in any way affect the policies that are already being implemented. If it must be changed, if it must be changed, it must be on the basis that it's not working, and it should be adjusted instead of being changed completely. Then you also mentioned harmonized social intervention programs. So the social protection and poverty schemes, the government needs to come up with policies that will harmonize all the social intervention programs that's already going on in Nigeria. Then we need a policy for that. Then I also resonate with one of the things that you said, which is intentional and mandatory inclusiveness. We're looking at those out of school children, we're looking at physical persons with disabilities, we're looking at women. So the government has to come up with policies that will be intentional and mandate inclusiveness whenever we're coming up with policies and things that are related, and in order to promote social justice in Nigeria. So thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. So we're coming to the end of this session. I know that from what we've said in this block, hope isn't passive, it's built through action. And speaking of action, let's bring the audience into this conversation. So, all right, this is audience, this is your moment. We've been listening to our panelists for the past 1 hour. Now we want to hear from you. Kindly drop your questions in the chat and I'll bring them to the panel. So don't hold back. We already have some questions. So how we're going to do it, if any of the panelists have answered to the question that I'm going to read, please go ahead and unmute your mic and just do this in 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Okay, so the first question is how do we ensure rural women have access to legal support when they face violence? Okay, I think I'll just show all the questions. Then we also have another question. What role should the private sector play in advancing social justice? So the first question was, How do we ensure rural women have access to legal support when they face violence? So if anybody have answers to this, I'm sure our panelists do. Please go ahead and kindly answer.
Can you are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Barrister Gladys. I can hear you.
All right then.
I cannot hear her. We can't hear you. We can't hear you anymore. Barrister Gladys, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. I think the
It
network
comes
is. Okay, the network is really amazing. So while we wait for Barrister Gladys to come back online, I'm going to be putting up the next question. Okay, Barrister Gladys, looks like you're back. Can you hear us?
yes, yes, I am, and I can hear you.
Okay, so we couldn't hear anything that you said, so just kindly walk us through again.
All right. So, accessing justice or legal support comes from a standpoint of awareness. Also, you need to be aware of the structures around you. You also need to be aware of what kind of support those structures give. And this awareness creation does not lie heavily on the survivor. No, it lies heavily on CSOs and then the respective government agencies. In the course of my conversation, I mentioned that the VAP is 10 years old, yet we still have less than 50% of Nigerians who are aware of the existence of the VAP. So that invariably means that we need to increase awareness about that law. Now, the same way would equally increase awareness about the relevant structures.
Okay, so Barrister Gladys, we can't hear you anymore. Okay, so she said she's going to respond in the chat box. So I'm going to put up the next question, which is, what role should the private sector play in advancing social justice? Okay, so while we wait for their answer, we have another question from one of our audience, and it is, what can young Nigerians do right now to hold leaders accountable? What can young Nigerians do right now to hold leaders accountable? So if any of our panelists have the answer to this question, please go ahead.
Okay, maybe I can step in here. To hold our leaders accountable, what Nigeria needs to do is Nigeria must be participatory. We must drop the notion of my vote doesn't count. So we must not be docile. In an unjust society, silence will become a crime. When we are crying for weak social justice in Nigeria, what do? And good for us, we're in democratic, society. We have democracy, even though our democracy is somewhat, crippled. But that notwithstanding, we still call it democracy. It doesn't have any other name. And what should we do now is that democracy gives us opportunity to hold our leaders accountable. And how do we hold them accountable? Must engage in everything that happens within our society. Within our local government, must be part of it. And if good people refuse to come into politics, bad people will continue to be there. And as long as you have bad people there on that space, nothing will change. It will just, the business as usual, it just continue, as business as usual. And so what we need to do, very importantly, is that everybody must take responsibility. We must know that we don't have two countries. We only have Nigeria. If anything happens in Nigeria today, and we can no longer have a stable polity, we have nowhere to go. I'm very sure that no country will accept us. You can see what Nigerians are going through all over the world today. And so we have responsibility.
Okay, I think Professor Adeniji, we can't hear you as
citizen
well.
of Nigeria, that we're going to have the kind of society we desire. Is by so we're going to have the kind of Nigeria that we desire. And apathy will not help us. Apathy, voting with our legs. Many of us vote with the legs during election. When election comes, it doesn't concern me. After all, my vote will not count. Go there and do it. 2, we must come together, speak out. We must speak out when things are not going well. We must ensure that we don't keep quiet. We must not hold our peace when things are not peaceful. We must not keep silent when we need to speak out. And when we have opportunities to do anything, we must ensure that we do it with all sense of responsibility. And I want you to know that Nigeria, the way it is today, is a function of who we are chosen to be there. If we don't allow them, wrong people will not get to place. And thirdly, I want us to know that when election comes and we're being manipulated, we should not buy into it. Fourthly, when things are not done well and they give you a pittance to keep quiet, we must not keep quiet. Speak out, regardless of what becomes of it. So we should not fight for interest. We should fight for the interest of everyone. And by so doing, we are going to have equality, and what we will call a country that can ultimately compete with a part of the world. And I want to say it lastly, is that most of the countries that you see today that seems to be doing well in terms of social justice, and they didn't get on the platter of gold. They spoke out. Germany, there were a lot of revolution that took place in those places. We're not talking of bloody revolution. Revolution of knowledge. When there is knowledge, when we understand what we need to do and we do it, we're going to have a change attitude, a change society. And we must change our orientation. It matters. What we say, your part of contribution matters a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Adeniji, for that. So in responding to the questions so far, Barrister Gladys responded to the question, how do we ensure rural women have access to legal support when they face violence? So I think she sent in her answer, but although she already mentioned is that the first thing is to be aware of the support around you. And awareness lies solely on the CSOs and the governments to create awareness of this. So I'm going to post her answer also in the chat box right now. So her answer is currently on the chat box. So she mentioned that we're going to go ahead. Then also referring to the question that Professor Adeniji answered, what can young Nigerians do right now to hold leaders accountable? So he mentioned Nigerians must be participatory. So this is not the time to say, oh, I'm not interested in politics. He said everyone must take responsibility. And if we must speak out. So if we see things that are not going right or going wrongly, we must come together and speak out. This is not the time for apathy. Apathy doesn't help anyone. So yes, I totally agree with everything that he has said. So we need to be participatory as Nigerians. We only have one country, and the countries who have gotten to the place of the level of social justice that they have now, they didn't get there on a platter of gold, like he said. They put in some work. So Nigerians have work to do. We have work to do. So if you're on this life, like I said, we're rounding up right now, and if you want to take action, you want to know where to start from, I'm going to be dropping the link in the comment section. Go ahead and click on that link, and I'm also going to be explaining further. But before that, I think Barrister Gladys is back. We've almost gotten to the final. This is the final section. So I have a question for each of our panelists. So we're going to start with Miss Peace, our SDG advocate. Then we'll move on to Barrister Gladys. Then we'll move on to Professor Adeniji. Then we'll move on to Mrs. Modupe. So the final question for today's live session is, what is one specific action you want every single person watching today to take, starting from let's say this week has almost ended, this Friday, this week has ended. So I'll still say this week, starting from this week, what is one specific action you want every single person watching today to take? So let's keep our answers within 30 seconds. Thank you.
All right. Okay, like you said, the week is almost over, but you can also start taking action from this week. So you can look around you, look at your community, look at your environment, and identify an SDG issue or SDG issues that are prevalent in your society and in your community, and invite 3 to 5 friends, talk about it and talk about how you can take action to solve those problems. I know for many people, we do not know where to start when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to advocating for SDG goals or human rights, but you can decide to join platforms. Like I mentioned earlier, I talked about the SDG Advocates Program. If you do not know how to start, where to start, or how to take action, because the advocacy has many layers, there is project planning, idea mapping, different things, getting funding as well. So if you do not know where to start, you do not need to wait to get money from an international organization. You can decide to register for the SDG Advocates Program, and it's a great start. You will not regret it. Take it from me.
Okay, thank you so much. So I don't know if Barrister Gladys can hear us. Okay, so she said her network is very unstable. So Barrister Gladys sent in her, so she sent in her call to action. So the specific action she wants every single person who is watching this right now to take is to be the legal bridge in your own circle. So she wants you to download a digital copy of the VAP law, which is now available. She wants you to download a digital copy of the VAP law this week and read just 3 sections. What constitutes an offense, the rights of a survivor, and the penalties for perpetrators. She said that knowledge is the first line of defense. Too many perpetrators thrive because their victims do not know that what is happening to them is a crime. And I can attest to that because we've had, at Do Take Action, we've had programs, sensitization programs in various communities. And I can tell you for a fact that one problem that communities have, individuals have, is they are not aware of the laws that protect them. They are not aware of the VAP Act that protects them. So knowledge is the first line of defense. So she wants you to download the digital copy of the VAP law, read 3 sections, share that PDF in your family group, in your chats, in your community forums. And she said, when we replace cultural silence with legal literacy, we take the power away from the abusers and place it firmly back into the hands of the survivor. So I think this is what she said, and I strongly agree with her. So make sure you download a digital copy of the VAP law today, this week, and read just 3 sections, so that you will know what is an offense, you will know your rights as a survivor, and you also know the penalties for perpetrators. All right. Okay, so thank you so much, Barrister Gladys. I think we're going to be moving on now to Professor Adeniji. What is one specific action you want every single person watching today to take? So as Ms. Peace mentioned, she wants everyone that is listening to join platforms and start taking action. Barrister Gladys mentioned that you need to download the digital copy of the VAP Act. So Professor Adeniji, what is one specific action you want every single person watching today to take?
Importantly, I love what what was said by just the last speaker. Now, number one thing that you must know is we must do number one thing that we must do is that every one of us watching at this time, you must know who your leaders are. Make effort to know your leaders. Many of us, if I ask you, if there is an opportunity for me to see all of you, if I ask you to raise your hand, how many of you know your representative? You know, how many of you know your representative? If you don't know them, how do you hold them accountable? Number one thing that you must do, you must know your leaders. Two, you must attend meetings. Make it a point of duty to attend meetings where decisions are made, where you have opportunity to attend it. Because if you don't attend the meeting, whatever decision they take, it's binding on you. And that starts from your immediate community. In your tenancy environment, go attend meetings there. And from there to local government, to the state government, to the, and like that. When you have opportunity to attend meeting, that decision will be made that will affect your life. Make sure you are there. Number two, make sure when you are in the meeting, don't be passive. You must not be passive. When you get early understanding from what government is doing, don't be passive. Ask questions on platform, like the last speaker said. When you're on platform, you can raise questions from there, and that question will resonate. That question will send signal to so many people. And also, you must ensure that you know what rightly belongs to you. If you don't know what to have, you don't know what to ask questions about. For example, education. In education, we said there is compulsory in the constitution has it that we have compulsory, basic education for every Nigerian. But many people don't know. And when you demand that, even if you ask government, they will say, okay, they have primary school there. The primary school, there's nothing there. But ask them. When they know that we know, they will be careful. And they know that whatever we do now affect their next election. They will take action. They will do something. So we must know what really belongs to us. And lastly, we must all be interested. Don't be disinterested. Have interest in whatever happens within your society. So by so we can make a demand from our leaders. And lastly, democracy is not just about voting or being voted for, or voting and being voted for. Democracy gives you opportunity to place a demand on your leaders. Democracy gives opportunity to hold your leaders accountable. Must hold them accountable. And we know that there is power to recall, which many of us don't know. We can recall our leaders when they don't do well. So when we invoke that power and we recall 1, 2, 3 persons, because they are not performing well, they are not performing to expectation, you will see that every other person will sit up in Nigeria. So we can hold our leaders accountable. So we must take action from today, not this week, from today, and you will continue. And when we continue like this, when they know we are aware. Now, for example, lastly, as I speak, if you look at these electoral acts, this electoral law that has been contested seriously everywhere, it's because of awareness, because people they refuse to be ignorant. And because they refuse to be ignorant, by so doing, government, they have to go back, emergency, sitting from the 2 houses. Now they are amending it because the people place demand. That's what democracy has done for us. When we do like this consistently, we're going to change a lot of things in our nation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Adeniji. So his one specific action to you that is watching is know who is leading, know who your leaders are. Know who your leaders are. Then he mentioned being interested. This is not a time to engage in political apathy. Be interested in who your leaders. Be interested in politics right now. Attend meetings where decisions are made. Because if you don't attend the meetings, the decisions that are made will also come to affect you directly or indirectly. So he also said that we have the power to recall our leaders. I don't know if any of us here was aware of this before. So you have the power to say, oh, I as a citizen voted you, and this is what you said you will do. This is what you have done. This is what you have not done. What is the way forward? So he said that by us doing this, by us holding them accountable, and they knowing that, oh, they have another election to contest for, they are going to start putting things in place and taking action in their communities to make things better. So thank you so much, Professor Adeniji, for that very specific call to action. Thank you so much. Then I think Yes, thank you. We've almost come to the end of this live session. I don't know if Barrister Gladys has something to say, because your network was a bit shaky. Do you have something to say, or can we go ahead? Okay, I guess that's okay. Barrister Gladys, I was asking if you have anything to say. Your network was a bit shaky as we come to the end of this session. Do you have one final word? Okay, I think that she does not. So we've gradually come to the close of this session. The question now is, will you take them? We have actions that has been said in this live session, recommended actions. The question for us now that are watching is, are we going to take them? This is how renewal happens, not from declarations, but from decisions. From decisions. So, if you're watching us right now, this is your moment of action. Like I said, I'll be dropping the link for you to take action in the comment section. So, but first of all, I would like to say a very big thank you to all our panelists for those powerful calls to action. You've heard them. Now is your turn. If you're watching this and you're thinking, what can I actually do? I have your answer. So I do take action. We are mobilizing 1 billion plus people across Africa to take action on the issues that they care about. And today I'm inviting you to become a do grassroots development champion. So how does it work? We have 8 core issues, and you can pick the one you are passionate about. We have democracy, corruption, human rights, and governance. We have economic growth and opportunity. We have quality education, good health and well-being. We have peace, security, and criminal justice reform. We have energy, environment, and climate change. We have inclusion, empowerment, equality, and justice. And then we have food and water security. Let's say, for instance, you are passionate about inclusion, passionate about empowerment, passionate about equality and justice. Remember, today is Social Justice Day. And you said, I want to do something. I want to do something in my community about this. The first step is for you to click on the link that will be in the comment section. You click on the link, then register to be a do grassroots development champion. Then when you register, we are going to send you action kits. You don't need to do any other thing. Just register, and we're going to send you the action kits for you to start organizing 10 people in your neighborhood, or we can even send you flyers to advocate for policy change on social media. So once you register, just know that you are now a part of a movement of those who are driving change across Africa and in Nigeria. So this, I'm going to be dropping the link. Like I said, the registration link will be in the comment section and in the description below. You can also follow us on Instagram. We are do_take action. Do_take action. Stay connected with us. Register as a do grassroots development champion. Take action on the issues that you care about. So the conversation doesn't end here. Your action starts now. Thank you to everyone who has joined us live from the beginning up until this moment. Thank you to our amazing panelists, and thank you for caring about a more just Nigeria. Happy World Social Justice Day. Let's make it count. Thank you. So I don't
Thank
know if
you.
Barrister Gladys can hear us. Can you hear us, Barrister Gladys? Just turn on your camera so we can just take a bit of a
Yes.
screenshot. Okay, so we'll just be taking one camera to celebrate, one photo to celebrate Happy World, to celebrate the Social Justice Day. So we're taking just one photo. Just hold on, everyone. Okay, and I have it. Thank you so much for joining today's session. Thank you for the amazing insights that you brought. We look forward to everyone who joined this session taking action and also demanding for justice. A billion, we've heard it. We have a billion reasons to take justice in Nigeria. So let's go on and take action. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 All right, bye.